last class, we are talking about how to pass objects as a parameters to a method. Object as parameters to a method. So in this class, we are going to talk about the inheritance. So what is inheritance? So as I said, one of the main key feature of object-oriented programming is inheritance. So inheritance is the one of the key feature of object-oriented programming. So as the name indicates, inherit. So what is inherit here is inheriting the superclass properties to the sorry, inheriting the superclass properties to the subclass. Inheriting the superclass properties to the subclass is called inheritance. So why we require this inheritance? Before we go ahead and see how to implement inheritance in Java, so what is the keyword we are going to use, how to extend the properties of superclass to subclass, what are the properties we can extend, what are the properties we cannot extend, all these things, why we require inheritance in real time, right? So as I said the definition, inheriting the properties of superclass to subclass is called inheritance. Inheriting the properties of superclass to subclass is called inheritance. So the clear definition is very clear. Now, why we required inheritance in real time? Why we required inheritance in real time, right? So where we are going to use this inheritance basically? See, inheritance is one of the key feature which we use in almost all the applications. Almost all the applications. Take your Gmail. Take best example your Gmail. You will be having inbox. You will be having some social networking mails. You will be having some spam mails. All those things. So how a mail is going to be decided by the particular software, whether it is a inbox mail, whether it is a spam mail, whether it is a social networking mail. See, initially there is a superclass called email. There is a class called email. So within that we are going to get all the emails. Within that we are going to get the all emails. So based on some features, we are going to decide whether it is a spam mail, whether it is a normal email, whether it is a no, what type of mail it is. So let me just show you how it would be. So I'll just open my Gmail account just for your understanding, better understanding. All right. Right. Now you can see here, this is my Gmail account. See, it is a Gmail account provided by the college. It's my college Gmail account. You can see here. This is sccengg.edu.in. Based on our portal, they have given the Gmail for me. So this is the ID I'm using. Now what is happening? Whether I am getting social networking mail, whether I am getting promotional mail, whether I am getting any type of mail, all are getting into my inbox. All are getting into my inbox. Now what I will do is, in the same way, I'll go to my personal mail ID. So let me open my personal mail ID. So I'm just opening my personal mail ID. Right. Adding people itself, it is taking so much time. No problem. We need to accept change, right? Right. So now my personal mail ID is loading now. See, this is official mail ID where I am using from the college side. So every mail is getting into my inbox, and this is my personal mail ID which I am using for so long time. Like that's why you can see there are 22,273 mails which are not read. Why they are not read? They might be promotional mails, they might be any kind of mails, right? You can see here now. This is my primary inbox. This is my social networking related inbox. This is with respect to promotions, right? Now, so what is happening here? So see, the email is going to be the main class. The email is going to be the main class. From the email, it is extracting the properties, whether the mail has to go to the primary account, social networking account, or promotions account. So based on that, it is going to categorize. Based on this, it is going to categorize. So same way. So when we going to talk about inheritance, so inheritance is nothing but extracting the superclass properties to subclass. Extracting the superclass properties to subclass. So superclass is nothing but the main class from which we are going to inherit the properties. Superclass is nothing but the main class from which we are going to inherit the properties. So subclass is nothing but the class for which we are going to get inherited the properties. For the class for which we are going to get inherited the properties, right? So what we can call subclass is, it's a special version of superclass. That's it. It is a special version of superclass. So when you want to inherit the properties of superclass to a subclass, we are going to use the inheritance. So in inheritance can be implemented using a keyword called extends. Yesterday I told about super, so we are going to see super also. So inheritance can be implemented using a keyword called extends, right? Now you can see one example so that you can understand. So this is a best small example for your inheritance. So initially I am writing a class called A. Initially I am writing a class called A. In the class A, I am defining variables I comma j, and I am defining a function called show ij. So it is going to print the ij value. Now I am defining one more class called B. I am defining one more class called B, which is going to extend the A. Now this is your super class. Oh my goodness. Alright. So this is your super class. Class A is the super class and class B will be the subclass, because the class B is extending the properties of A. So this is how we are going to implement inheritance in Java. This is how we are going to implement inheritance in Java. So the extends is the keyword which we are going to implement, or which we are going to use to implement the inheritance. Now class A is the superclass, class B is the subclass which extends the properties of class A. Now in class B I am defining one variable called k, one method called show k. In show k I am going to print the k value, and I am also going to call function sum, where I am going to use the variables I plus j plus k value. Now if you can see, ij has not been defined in this class. As I said, the members which we are using in the class, they are private to that particular class. But now ij has been used in class A, I mean defined in class A, will be using in class B. How it is possible? It is possible because we are using the extends keyword. That is the difference. That is the main, not difference, that is the main definition of inheritance. So what is the main definition? The properties, the variables which are defined in class A can be used in class B. Why it can be used? Because class B is a subclass of class A, which is a superclass. So this is the concept of inheritance. So inheritance can be implemented in Java using extends keyword. Now let me go to the main function. We are implementing simple inheritance, that is the concept over here. So let me go to the main function and try to understand it. Now what I am doing is I am creating one object for this class A. So A super object new A of. I am creating one more object for class B. B sub object new B. So super object ij variables are there. We are giving some value for that. We are assigning some value for that, right? Now what we are going to do? We are going to print the contents of super class. Now what I'm going to do? I'm just going to call super ob, which is object dot show ij is the function of class A. So I'm just calling that function, and then we are printing that value. Now for subclass, what we are going to do? For subclass also, I'm going to assign some values for ij and k. Ij and k. Though ij is not defined in the subclass, still we are using it. Why we are using it? Because it is a subclass of superclass A. So here also for subclass, see what is the actual method of subclass? Show k. But I am calling show ij. How it is possible? Because it is extending the properties of superclass. It is extending the properties of superclass. So we can also access this method. We can also access this method. So I am calling this method, and also I am calling show k method. Show k method, then I am calling sum. So that means once a particular class becomes subclass for a superclass, you can access the members methods of that particular class using the object created by the subclass. Using the object created by the subclass. Here, if you observe in this example, ij is not the variables of class B. They are the variables of class A. As class B is a subclass of class A, we are using for the object reference of subclass with the superclass variables. Same thing, show ij is a method in superclass, but we are calling with the help of subclass object show ij. How it is possible? Because it is called, this is the concept of inheritance, where we are going to extend or inherit the properties of superclass to subclass. So when I say inherit the properties, it is nothing but making use of the variables, methods which are defined in the superclass using the subclass object, right? So this is called simple inheritance. This is called simple inheritance, where we are going to use the superclass properties in the subclass using the subclass object, not with the superclass object. So I'll just pause here for a minute, go through this program, try to understand, try to analyze the program. Any doubt is there, please ask me. Or if you want me to repeat once again, just put in the chat box, repeat, I'll repeat it. Or if you have any doubt, put in the chat box. Or you can unmute and ask. There is something in chat box, let us see. Monica. Repeat. Okay, fine. Good. Right. See, first in very simple way so that you can understand. First, what we are telling is the definition of inheritance. What is inheritance? Inheriting the superclass properties to the subclass. First, understand the definition. If you understand the definition, it will be very easy. Inheriting the superclass properties to the subclass, that is called inheritance, right? So when I say superclass, what is subclass? Superclass is nothing but the main class from which we are going to inherit the properties, Next, what is subclass? See, subclass is nothing but the class for which we are going to inherit the properties, Now, see, as per the definition, we are going to implement the inheritance. So if you want to implement inheritance, you should have two classes. One is superclass, next one is subclass. Superclass and subclass. So now let us take an example. And before going to that, if you want to implement inheritance in Java, you need to use extends keyword. Now let us go to the example. Try to analyze. This is a simple inheritance example. There are multiple types, but this is a simple inheritance. Right. Now what I'm doing here is I'm creating one main class, which is called class A. I'm creating one main class called A. Within this class, I'm defining variables I, j and one method called show ij. What we are doing internally in this method, don't worry, whatever it is. Right? Show ij is the method which I am calling. So this class is called as superclass. Why it is called as superclass? Because it is not depending on any other class. So this is called superclass. Class A is the superclass. Now I'm creating one more class called B. Within the B, I'm defining a variable K. Called K. I'm calling a method called show K. And one more method called sum. Don't get confused. Method is nothing but function. In Java, we won't call it as a function. We'll call it as a method. Right? Now, so in class B, I'm creating a variable K. I'm calling a method show K and sum. Now, what I'm doing for class B, I want to make class B as a subclass of this class. To this class A. How to do that? Using extends keyword. When you put class B extends class A, that means we are implementing inheritance. We are implementing inheritance, and whatever variables, whatever methods, whatever variables, whatever methods which we used in superclass can be used in subclass. Why it can be used? Because we are using a keyword called extends. It is the concept of inheritance. Now this one will become superclass, this one will become subclass, because class B is taking the properties of class A. Suppose if you want to make class A as a subclass, class B as a superclass, it is very simple. Class A extends class B. Class A extends B. Then class A will become subclass, class B will become superclass, right? So whichever is going to extend the features of another class, that will become subclass, and this one will become superclass. Now, if you come to class B, you can see here at the sum, I comma j, I have not defined these variables. I have not defined these variables. Suppose if you are not using class B extends A, class B extends A, I mean, if you are writing just class B, you will get error here. What is the error? I comma j is not defined. I comma j is not defined, because I comma j is we have not defined in this class. Now here in this example we won't get the error. Why we won't get the error? Because class B is extending the properties of class A, and I comma j has been defined in class A. That's why we are not going to get the any error. We are not going to get any error. Now I am coming to the main function. In the main function, what I am doing here is, for this class A, I am creating one object called super OB. I am creating object called super OB. And for class B, I am creating one more object called sub OB. How to create object? Already we have discussed a couple of classes back. For super class, I am creating object super OB. For subclass, this is how we are going to create. Again, I am repeating how to create object in Java. Class name followed by object name equals to new class name as a method. Class name as a method. This is called constructor. This is called constructor, right? Constructor is going to be a method. Now, once we create the objects, first I am going to access this superclass, that is class A. Super ob.I equals to 10. So for this I and j, I am assigning some values 10, 20. Once it is done, don't worry about system.out.println. It's for our reference we have written. I am calling method show ij. Show ij is there in superclass. So I am using superclass object super ob.show ij. So it is going to execute entire this program. It is going to execute entire this this class. Now, see, actually in sub object belongs to class B. So in class B, we have not defined variables I comma j. Sorry, we have not defined the variables I comma j, but we are assigning the values. How it is possible? It is possible because class B is extending class A. So that means it is the subclass and this is the superclass. As it is going under inheritance concept, we could able to take the variables which are defined in superclass can be accessed in the subclass. So that is the reason for class B subclass object we are assigning the values. Once it is done, see, show is a method is there in superclass, but I am using sub object. Sub object belongs to subclass. So by using subclass also I can call this method. I can call this method because class B is extending the properties of class A. Class B is extending the properties of class A. So that is the reason I could able to call all the methods which we are using in the superclass using subclass. Now by using subclass object, I am calling show ij. So it is going to execute this part. Then I am calling show k function. Show k belongs to this one only. So it is going to work. Now next, so this is for the method. Next I am calling one more method which is written here, sum. So don't worry about system.out.println, just for our reference we have written sub object dot sum. Then it is going to execute this sum function. See, that means the variables methods of superclass can be accessed using subclass object. So that is called inheritance. That is called inheritance, right? So this is the concept of inheritance which we are going to use in Java, right? Still any doubt or is it clear? Is it clear? Still any doubt? Yes, Kavana and Monica, is it clear? So
Yes, sir.
basically, yeah. So basically, extracting the properties of superclass to subclass is called inheritance. Very simple. Extracting the superclass properties to the subclass is called inheritance. So this is simple inheritance. So basically, it is a simple inheritance which we are using, right? So what about others? Is it clear to everyone? Right. So hoping no one is having any doubt. So let me just continue to the next concept. Next concept in the inheritance. Okay. Thank you. Right. Now, so this we are calling it a simple inheritance. So how we are going to use the properties of superclass to the subclass. Say for example, if any of the, okay, this is a syntax how it is going to be. I explained all these things. Class, subclass name, extends, superclass. Extends is the keyword which we use to implement inheritance. Now, say for example, if any of the variable defined as a private, if any of the variable is defined as a private, though you create the subclass for this superclass, though you create subclass for this superclass, you cannot access this variable. You cannot access this variable because this variable is private to this particular class. This variable is private to this particular class. But in Java, as I said, the variables, if you are not mentioning anything, by default, it is a default variable. Default is nothing but kind of public variable. So that's why the public variables can be accessed. If you mention like private, you cannot access them here. Now you can see this example. Now you can see this example. So I equals to x, z equals to, sorry, in class A, I am defining a variable called I, one more variable called j. I is a public variable, j is a private variable. I is a public variable, j is a private variable, and I am calling function setIj or method setIj. Now I am creating one more class called B, which will extend the A, I am creating a variable called total, and I am creating method called sum. In sum, what I am doing, total equals to I plus j. Total equals to I plus j. So when you execute this, you will get this error. J is not accessible. Why J is not accessible? Because J is a private variable. It can be accessed only within this particular class. So like this, if any of the variable, if any of the variable in the superclass defined as a private, it cannot be accessed. Right? So what is the best example, real-time example for this is, see, you go to bank, right? If you go to bank and you drop one check, let's say for example, I'm going to HDFC Bank, I'm dropping one check which I received from SBI, Now, what HDFC people will do? They will get into SBI. HDFC Connect account. There will be some Connect interface. They will get into that. They will verify all my details. They'll try to get the amount from SBI, or they'll send a request to the SBI saying that, hey, we received some check like this. This is the check number. This is the amount. So can we credit into my customer account? So the amount will be transferred from SBI to HDFC, and HDFC will deposit that amount into my account. Now, in this scenario, if you take, what are the public variables? Transferring money, check number, customer name, account number, all these are public variables. Public variables. HDFC can access through one software which is integrated between SBI and HDFC. But what are the private variables? What are the private variables? So the private variables are whether SBI is giving me as a loan, whether SBI is giving me as some gift or whatever it is. Why they have given check? That is least bothered by the HDFC, and that is confidential information from SBI. That is confidential information from SBI. Which mobile number I have given to SBI? That is again confidential information. So when there is some confidential information which you don't want to share with the even subclass, even with the subclass, when using inheritance, you can make it as a private. You can make it as a private, right? So the properties, the features which you don't want to share even with the subclasses will be treated as a private members, will be treated as a private members. So that is what we are telling here. When you don't want to share some data with the subclass also, we can make it as a private. So you can see one more example here, which this is an example we are seeing from the first box class, right? So when you are going to extract the box class using color box is a class which is extending the box properties width, height and depth, So when you want to extend it, if you make any of the variable width, height and depth as a private, you cannot extract that value from the superclass. You cannot extract that value from the superclass, right? Now we are going to also see, we are also going to see now how the reference variable of a superclass can be assigned with the subclass derived from that superclass, right? So how we are going to use the reference variables, basically how we are going to use the reference variables, right? So now what is going to happen here is, so we have taken same box example which we are seeing from the first of this module. Now whenever you want to use the reference of the particular variable in the superclass and subclass derived from the superclass, so you can make use of it. Let me just, I think I have one more example. Okay, it is not added, no problem. Now you can see here I am creating one value or one object where I am passing the values of 3578.37, right? These are the four values for these four variables, Now when I call this particular function, so I can also pass the reference values directly to the subclass. I can also pass the reference variables directly to the subclass. You don't worry about this entire program, no need to get confused. So when I am calling the method in the subclass which is defined directly in the subclass, you can pass the values of these superclass variables directly in the subclass as a reference, That means, so I have not assigned any values for WHD in the superclass, directly I am passing them to the subclass. So you can see this example only, you can easily understand. Yeah, see here what we are doing, first I am assigning some ij value to the superclass, then only I am calling subclass and I am assigning some values. So what is reference here is, without assigning some value to I and j, directly you can assign here, or you can pass it to the method. So there is no limitation that first we need to assign it to superclass, then we need to call the subclass. No. So if you want to assign some values to the variables, directly you can do it either in the subclass or in the superclass. So that is what it is telling. So in this case, so superclass is not there, but still it is a subclass. How we can identify it is a subclass? Because we have extends keyword. So these four values directly we are passing from the object reference without calling the superclass. Directly we are passing to the subclass. So this is also possible in your inheritance. Right? So that is about the basics of inheritance, how to use the inheritance, all those things. Now, so what is super? Now we have seen extents, how to implement simple inheritance, how to pass the values, right? Now, what is super here? So let's say, for example, as we have seen only simple inheritance, there is a possibility that you will get multiple inheritance, multi-level inheritance, right? You may have 10 superclasses. You may have 20 subclasses in a program. You may have 10 superclasses and you may have 20 subclasses. How particular subclass is going to identify? How particular subclass is going to identify? This is my superclass. This is my superclass, right? So that is where we are going to use the super keyword. That is where we are going to use the super keyword, right? So the super keyword, how we are going to call? First, we are going to call the superclass constructor. Then we are going to access the members of the superclass using the subclass. So basically, very simple. It's very simple. I'll tell you once again same example which you can understand. I have 10 I have 10 superclasses, 20 subclasses. Which subclass belongs to which superclass? I don't know. So to avoid those confusions, we are going to use the super keyword. We are going to use the super keyword, right? So how we are going to do it, what we are going to do it in this superclass keyword. So we will see in the next class. I don't want you to get confused with super and extends. So this is extends and how we are going to pass the variables. What is inheritance? How inheritance will be implemented. If we make one variable as private, we cannot extract or we cannot use that variable in the subclass. So that is what we just want to show you today. So let me just go to browser where it went. Okay, just a second. Okay, directly I'll show you here only, no problem. Again, it will take some time to load it. What is this class animal? Okay. Okay, so before going to see the example, see these are the three types of inheritance basically we have. One is called single, multi-level, hierarchical. Multi-level, hierarchical. So Java does not support multiple inheritance. Java does not support multiple inheritance, but C++ will support multiple inheritance. Whereas Java does not support multiple inheritance. Please remember that. That is very important question for your interview. Which supports multiple inheritance? C++. Java does not support multiple inheritance. So Java supports basically three types of inheritance. One is called single, multi-level, hierarchical, and also it supports one more inheritance called hybrid. Hybrid is a combination of all these three. When you implement all these three together, it is called hybrid. Now first we will see what is single. Single is nothing but we will be having one class. We will be having one class. It will be extending it to a next class. So as we have seen small example now. Next, what is multi-level? There will be one superclass. There might be another superclass or subclass, superclass or subclass. So that means there will be multiple number of classes together. That is called multi-level inheritance. What is hierarchical? So there will be one superclass and there will be multiple number of subclasses. There will be multiple number of subclasses. Now we'll see one small example so that you can understand. Okay, it is there here. You can see. So the next is multiple. When you have two superclass with one subclass. When you have two superclass with one subclass, it is called multiple. But this is ruled out in Java. Java does not support multiple inheritance. As I said, last one is hybrid. Hybrid is a combination of single, multi-level, hierarchical inheritance. It combines all the types of inheritance. Now let us see the single inheritance example, how it is going to work. Now you can see here we are calling a class called animal and one function called or method called void eat, where we are printing eating. Next we are calling one more function or class called dog, which extends the features of animal. And we are calling method bark, where it's going to print barking. Now what I'm going to do here is I'm creating a object for a class called dog, and I'm going to call both eat function and bark function using same object, which I have created for the subclass, So this one is superclass, this one is subclass. For the subclass, I'm creating the object. from the reference of subclass object only, I am calling both the methods of subclass as well as superclass. Still it is going to work. Still it is going to work, right? So this is called simple inheritance. This is called simple inheritance. That means the variables methods which are defined in the superclass can be accessed by the subclass object, can be accessed by the subclass object, right? So this is called simple inheritance. Next, let us go to multi-level inheritance. Multi-level inheritance, how it would be, I'll explain later all the examples with the execution. So we have class called animal. We have one more class called dog, which is extending the animal. So that means it is superclass and this is subclass. For this subclass, I'm writing one more subclass. Class baby dog extends this dog. Extends this dog. That means now animal is the superclass for dog. Baby for baby dog, dog is the superclass. So that means now the class dog is going to be both superclass as well as subclass. It is subclass for animal. It is a superclass for baby dog. For a baby dog. Again, you can have one more class called class puppy extends baby dog. Class puppy extends baby dog. That means so puppy's superclass is baby dog. Baby dog superclass is dog. Dog's superclass is animal. So this is called multi-level inheritance. This is called multi-level inheritance. So when we are going to create the object reference, we are going to create it for baby dog, and baby dog can access the members of this dog function. It can also access the members of animal. It can also access the members of its own class. So that means as there is a relation between all these three classes, it can be accessed either eat function, bark function also. Of course, by default it will access weep, but these two also can be accessed, right? So this is called multi-level inheritance. This is called multi-level inheritance. So one class, superclass, subclass will become superclass, again subclass will become superclass, etc., etc., etc. So like this, we are going to implement multi-level inheritance also. So I just shown you simple inheritance example. Tomorrow we will continue with what is simple inheritance properties, superclass, super keyword, multi-level inheritance. So I'm just going to stop it here. I'm going to share the quiz. I want all of you to answer that quiz. Just give me a minute. I'll share the quiz. Alright, quiz is assigned, you will get it. And meanwhile, I have one more announcement. I have assigned assignment 2. Assignment 1 is finished. Assignment 2 I have assigned. Saturday is the last date. You need to finish that assignment. The assignment 2 is going to be 5 programs. There is no theory, 5 programs. I want all of you to write in a sheet with expected output, then upload it. With expected output, then upload it. Right? Again, I am repeating. Assignment 2 has been given to you. Assignment 2 is a programs. You need to write all those programs in a sheet write the expected output and upload it before Saturday 5 p.m. right? And first assignment marks is being getting evaluated one by one. So I'll be giving, see, that is for 10 marks. I'll be giving less marks for the students, those who are turning late. There are some students turn in 7 hours late, 10 hours, one student 15 days late. So based on your time, I'm giving the marks, right? So don't worry about that. So you keep on submitting the assignment. Second assignment, last date is Saturday. Now quiz is assigned. You can start writing the quiz. So I'm just ending the meeting. You can complete the quiz and you can go to the next class. It will take hardly 5 minutes now.